If one more person tells you to just think positive, I need you to know something. That advice isn't just unhelpful, it's neurologically impossible for someone in a depressive episode. And here's the science that proves it. Depression is not a mindset. It is not a choice. It is not something you can attitude your way out of. It is a measurable, documented change in the physical structure and chemistry of your brain. When you are depressed, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thought, perspective, and decision-making, becomes significantly less active. At the same time, your amygdala, the threat detection center, becomes hyperactive. Your brain is literally running in survival mode while the part that could pull you out of it has gone quiet. This means the brain you are trying to use to think your way out of depression is the same brain that depression has already compromised. It is like trying to fix a broken hand with that same broken hand. And it gets more specific than that. Research has shown that depression physically shrinks the hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for memory and emotional regulation. Studies have found that people with chronic depression have measurably less gray matter in this region than people without it. This is not a metaphor. This is not weakness. This is biology. There is also the dopamine problem. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter responsible for motivation, anticipation, and the feeling that things are worth doing. In a depressed brain, dopamine signaling is severely disrupted. This is why depression doesn't just make you sad, it makes everything feel pointless. It removes the biological signal that tells you anything is worth getting up for. You are not being dramatic. Your brain has literally stopped producing the chemical that makes life feel meaningful. And serotonin, the molecule most associated with mood stability and emotional resilience, is also disrupted. Low serotonin doesn't just make you feel down. It makes negative thoughts feel more permanent, more true, and more inevitable than they actually are. The depression isn't just making you feel bad, it's making you believe the bad feelings are facts. So when someone tells you to just think positive, what they are actually asking you to do is override a compromised prefrontal cortex, a hyperactive threat response, reduced gray matter, disrupted dopamine signaling, and altered serotonin levels. With willpower, that's not motivation. That's asking someone to see clearly through a blindfold and blaming them when they can't. Here is what actually helps. Not toxic positivity, not pretending, not forcing a smile until it becomes real. What the research consistently points to is this: small, repeated physical actions that gradually restore chemical balance in the brain. Not because they feel good, not because you want to do them, but because your brain responds to behavior before it responds to thought. Movement, even a 10-minute walk, raises dopamine and serotonin levels measurably. Not enough to cure depression, but enough to give your prefrontal cortex slightly more access to itself, enough to create a small window. Social contact, even brief low-pressure interaction, activates oxytocin pathways that partially counteract the isolation response depression creates. Your brain interprets connection as safety, and safety is the one signal that can begin to quiet the hyperactive amygdala. Sleep regulation, going to bed and waking at consistent times, directly affects the neurochemical cycles that depression disrupts. Your brain restores chemical balance during deep sleep. Irregular sleep makes the chemistry worse. None of these are cures. None of these replace professional support, which anyone experiencing depression deserves and should seek. But they are not positive thinking. They are science. They work with your brain instead of against it. You were never weak for not being able to think your way out. You were working with a brain that had already been changed by something real. And that changes everything about how you approach getting better. If this explains something you've been through,